What is going on? Right here I have an alternator on a 91 Jeep Comanche. This trick should work for Cherokees as well, Wranglers, not so sure. Four-cylinder guys, sorry, I have no idea about those motors with the alternator. But anyways, as you can tell, that's a new alternator because mine went out. What had happened, or what this video is for, I should say, is when I personally went to YouTube to try to find help how to remove this alternator, because for you fellow Jeepers that have 4 liters, and notice I said liters, not cylinders, those of you that have 4 liters, you know that the alternator and a couple other things on the bottom are kind of a bitch to get to. Here's a little trick I found out because of this. The thing is, I mean, after you loosen your power steering pump, because that acts as your tensioner pulley, you have to loosen this bolt. Not quite sure if you can see it. The camera's pointed right at it. That bolt there, it's in between a track. And this bolt right there that's in the middle of the frame, that allows you to put a... quality's kind of bad for some reason. I'm gonna cover it up. Anyways, that bolt right there. Try to zoom out here, just get closer. This isn't gonna work. I can't get my big ass hands in there. See, if I'm looking right at the, you can kind of see it now. That bolt right there at the tip of my finger, it's right underneath the reservoir. Once the other 3 bolts are loose, you can put a tool on here. What I had to do is I had to get that set of extensions there with a U-joint. That's like 3 feet of extensions, and stick out to here with it. That's your adjuster screw, and that allows you to move the power steering pump. It'll sink down and give you enough slap in your belt so you can actually take it off the alternator and get to it. So then after you do that, you go to your alternator. On this one, a 91, the wires on the back of the alternator both of them are accessible from the bottom of the truck. I'm not going to get down there and show you, but have the positive, I believe it's the positive lead, not the red wire, but it's in like a black boot right there in center of frame. And also, kind of underneath the alternator, it's like a 4-wire harness. It's 2 little 8mm bolts followed by 2 10mm bolt holes. I should say they're not bolts, they're bolt holes. And a black, like say the webbing in my hand is a black plastic case. It looks kind of like this, and that's at like the 6 o'clock position on the back of the alternator. Both the positive lead and the ground harness are accessible from the bottom of this truck with a 10mm socket and an 8mm socket. So then once you do that off, you get your 15. I have a 15mm on the bottom. And up top, that one right there, the front one's a 13. That was a 15 back there. The top one is it doesn't thread into anything. It's a long bolt with a nut at the end, so you need 2 tools for that. Once you get all that off, what I found is I got to that point where everything was disconnected, but no video I found could help me in my alternator situation. Because my alternator case, you can't see it from here, but there's the pulley. What I was seeing were alternators with the fans designed to, cool them, were immediately on the back of the pulley and exposed. My housing on my alternator encases that fan. And so my case, let me get this out of the way, my alternator case is longer than those ones. So because of that, I couldn't, on Believe It Jeep's example, because I looked at his video, I couldn't nudge my alternator through the fan and then sink it down underneath that. And because I have it has something to do with the coolant, there's a can here. You can kind of see it. The back of the alternator, right behind it, there's a can here. It has to do with like the refrigerant, I believe. I don't know exactly what it's called. But because that cam was in the way, the videos that told me to walk the alternator back, I couldn't do that. And I couldn't walk it back and then bring it down under there. So what I had to do in my situation, for the 91 Comanche / Cherokee with a 4-liter, not the 4-cylinder, the 4-liter, I had to take my battery tray out. Then I had this hose, which goes to my intercooler. I had to pull this hose up, and then with my other hand, which I'm holding the camera with right now, I could pull the alternator out through this. That's what I had to do, and then I just reversed the process, putting everything back together. I had to sink it back through this way and everything else like that. And then right now I still have to put everything back together. I got to tighten the belt up, as you saw earlier. But that's how you replace the alternator in a 91 Cherokee / Comanche with the 4-liter. Catch you on the flip side.